know that the MPO is more than willing to meet with people individually to talk to them about how they can increase their chances of getting those grants. But I was told by Melissa, don't come in 2 or 3 days before the grant is due. You've got to plan for it, and you've got to have a plan. The grant is due actually not that far from now, February the 27th. So you see, there's only 30 days. And again, it is not something that is that simple to do. I don't know that you could take somebody who's already a city staffer and just say, hey, you know, here, check out this grant and let's apply. I don't think it's that simple. But I hope that you'll consider this opportunity. I think there are other opportunities out there. And I think it doesn't mean that we're going to throw the bond, possibility of a smaller bond perhaps, to help finance this. We all agree. I think nobody disagrees that the roads need repair. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
And I'll
Thank you very much, Ms. Bell. Michael Fox, followed by Jeffrey Moran.
Michael Fox, 1609 North G Street, Wordsworth. My experience with this is very similar to Loretta Sharp's. In the summer meeting, if you recall, I came to stand against bond and speak about that for a couple of reasons. Those are stated. But through that meeting, as my grandmother would say, if you can't change your mind, are you sure you still have one? I did change my mind. And there was a couple of reasons for that as well. But through all of the discussion and discourse and some of the animus things that were being said, I thought up north we had civilian review boards as it applied to law enforcement. But what would be the problem with having an ongoing sort of living group of individuals from this, of citizens, the us, that can just provide a little oversight with no power, because that's your job, okay? But if there was something that would be able to make this matter more palatable to people who were resisting, and there were a lot of reasons for it, and some of them made no sense to me whatsoever, and some seemed delusional and absurd. So to help those people, if we had an ongoing group of citizens that were not commissioners, never commissioners, not in real estate, that if they could just have quarterly meetings on projects as it relates to a bond, that they could then point out things. I don't even think they should be able to make suggestions. They should just be able to point out and say, what's going on this on 10th Avenue North with the sewers? What's happening around downtown with some other project? But a civilian review board would be more ideal, and in my mind, the way they work, it would be, you know, every year, however long this bond lives, and even after the projects are done, the civilian review board could also watch the paper. You know, the money, the debt. I don't know if that's feasible for us. I think it would be a little bit more acceptable to some people who are totally opposed to this if they thought that, yeah, this isn't something you're all doing to us, because you're not. I don't believe you are. And it's something that has to be done. So, you know, that's my suggestion.
Thank you. This is Jeffrey Morgan. Did I pronounce it? Say Moran before Morgan, is it?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Followed by Marcus Kelly.
Jeffrey Morgan, 307 Dartmouth Drive. I'm going to start by apologizing because I don't know that much about what's going on here. I got involved when this came up the last time, and I, like many people, found that when I got into it, I found, intentionally or not, the process of finding information was very deceptive. And it took me a while, and if I sharpened my pencil and did it correctly, I found that I was spending tens of thousands of dollars over a period of 30 years for 2 properties in Lake Worth. One of them I built with those 2 hands, the other one I renovated with those 2 hands. So the money to me means a lot. I've done a great deal for this city. I've put a ton of money on the tax rolls. I don't want to pay for someone down here that's running a rental slum and not paying their fair share. My question would be, initially, is it possible to set this up in some way that instead of using property value alone, we look at usage or impact and secondarily foot of frontage? In other words, what do you have, how are you impacting our city, and how do we make you pay for it? Because that's the only fair way. Secondarily, my question would be, is this a done deal? Is this bill or this bond finished, or can we modify it at this point? Okay, I see nodding, so that's going to tell me that yes, we can still take things out or put things in, make it more fair and make it more palatable. Thank you, I'm on board. The last thing I'd like to say, anything that we do that penalizes the people that take care of their properties, it's a deal breaker. We will fight to stop it. If you take care of your property and you're raising our values, you're my hero. And I want you to come to my next barbecue. Because I want to single out the people that are impacting our city and damaging it. I've lived here for 55 years watching it happen. And I'm tired of it. And I think it's up to us, maybe just a few people in this room, to determine how this gets done and make sure the people responsible pay. I'm prepared to pay. I will happily open my wallet for whatever time period it takes to fix my city. But I'm not paying for the slumlords anymore. Thank you.
Marcus Kelly, followed by Sam Goodstein. Sam, are you going to speak or did you want me to read? Okay.
Hi, I'm Marcus Kelly. I live at 315 Dartmouth Drive. My proposal is to sell the municipal golf course. Sell the golf course.
Develop it. Develop it.
I've been looking at the financial data for the last few years. I have here from 2007 until 2012, and the budgeting kind of switched. It went from the golf course fund itself to the leisure services. I can't really say exactly how much money the golf course is losing each year currently, but from 2007 to 2011, it on average lost about $100,000 per year. We spend typically $1.2 million per year on the golf course. I believe our forecast is to continue that, 1.25 typically until 2018. So, I mean, my proposal is to sell the golf course, one, over the course of 30 years. That should generate revenue in the area between, of course, $30 million, $45 million, $80 million. And also the property itself, which is 100 acres of intercoastal front, even at $100,000 per acre, could generate $10 million initially right now, plus the cost of the money that we're not spending for the upkeep of it, which I'm looking at just in the most recent contract alone with Valley Trust. We're talking about $45,000 per month on the golf course. Some of years past, I've been looking at it here that in 2011 we spent $1.4 million in transportation and $1.3 million on the golf course. So just in 2011 we spent the same amount of money on transportation as we spent on the golf course. I mean, I understand the golf course is a big part of this community and it's been here for a very long time, but so have the roads. If you want to talk about people coming to the community, living here, nobody's going to come to the golf course. I don't think many people are going to move here just for the golf course. There's a lot of golf courses in South Florida. Roads, on the other hand, that's us. That's part of us there. So I know it's probably going to be a lot of people will object to such a proposal, but at the same time, if it's losing money every single year, we just moved $250,000 from the general fund last year into the golf fund because it has a negative budget right now of like $220,000. So if we're going to take money from the general fund and put it into a golf course that's not making any money, shouldn't we put that money at least into the roads? So that's my proposal there.
Thank you very much. Sam Goodstein, followed by Bill Hoffman.
Goodstein, 1717 12th Avenue South. As long as we're selling the golf course, which is similar to my idea, is that we reclaim our landfill and find a way to get money out of it, sell it off. I don't know what. They're putting in they're doing the thing at the old hospital. That property is going to become hot. Let's do something with that. But mainly I came up here to make sure that the bond gets back up there. Because as long as we're mentioning ideas, I like the bond. It's no surprise to anybody who's followed this. The bond is going to have a big impact on me and my family. I think it was a good idea. I think the real thing going on for a lot of people in this city is the process. And I'm glad to see this meeting improving the process. I think one of the key pieces that I don't understand, and a lot of people don't understand, is what is normal debt for a city? And we live in a political environment where debt has become a demon word, and deficit has become a demon word. And to have an intelligent understanding of what is normal debt for a city, that's a key piece of knowledge that I think is missing from the political rhetoric of our country. And, you know, if I have a house and has a mortgage, that's debt. That's good debt. So I think that is one of the key things, and I thank you for starting this process.
Thank you. Bill Hoffman, followed by John Rinaldi.
Commissioners, thank you very much. I'm new to this issue. I'll try to get up to speed. But several points that were already covered, which I thought were just really excellent. One is about the interest rates on municipal debt. But the interest rates on municipal debt, even though they're currently low, are usually not the drivers of whether you do the projects or not. The projects are typically done because they need to get done. But in that vein, my question would be, well, can you create a project with various phases in it? Does it all have to be done with one bond issue? Can it be done one bond issue today? And then you suffer the pain of these meetings again in 5 years, and in another 5 years. Can something like that be considered? If it's done in phases, can you consider doing it in different areas where you might have to focus because of the infrastructure particularly bad, or you particularly want to push development where these improvements would be a particular benefit? The issue the last gentleman talked about, I think, in terms of educating the populace, what does city debt look like? Not just in Lake Worth, but across the state, across the country, if you will. How do we equitably apply the debt service? How do the property owners, residential and commercial, equitably pay debt? And that can be pretty complicated. So just a couple issues I wanted to mention. That's enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rinaldi?
John Rinaldi, I own the Sable Palm House Bed and Breakfast, and I was against the bond issue from the moment that I heard the commission say that they wanted to increase my taxes like $3,000 a year to make the roads in Lake Worth the most beautiful roads in the county of Palm Beach. One of the reasons that I was against the bond is that the business community is under a great deal of pressure to survive here in Lake Worth. I drove here today, and if you drive down the downtown area of Lake Worth, the streets there's very few people out on the street. The businesses are hurting. We're in season now, and there isn't a great deal of foot traffic going on. So every dime that a business has to pay towards increased taxes makes the bottom line even more difficult to survive. As stores become vacant, the downtown area suffers. So when I heard that we needed $64 million, my first question was, well, what are you going to do with $64 million? That's a great deal of money. And how can we afford, as a city that only brings in less than $8 million in taxes every year, pay the interest on a bond that's going to be quite substantial? And I received information from the city indicating that you were going to do wonderful projects throughout the city. And it became very clear to me that the means to sell a $64 million bond was you had to offer something to everyone. And I think that in doing that, you presented us with a wish list of wonderful projects that would cost a great deal, instead of really getting down to what I think the citizens really wanted, which was a bottom line. What do you really need and how bad do you need it? And I equated it to the situation of if you had a house that needed a roof, but you also, your bathroom was old, your kitchen was old, your floors were needing work, but you needed the roof, you could go out and you could borrow the money to pay for the new roof, or you can go crazy and get a much bigger loan and get a new kitchen and get the new floors, and then you have this monthly payment, and God forbid you can't afford to make the monthly payment, then the bank takes your house back. You would have been smarter to do the roof first and wait until things got a little better in your economic picture, and then begin doing the bathrooms and the kitchen, and maybe you'd survive. But what I was being asked to approve was the fancy plan. And it got to the point where we were going to give all this money to the neighborhood associations. We were going to put in, wonderful things. Everybody's going to street calming. And, if you want to borrow the money, the first thing I would suggest is that we need some way as citizens in knowing what projects are the most needed now. Okay? Do we need to do everything immediately? Or are there certain things that we need to do really fast because they're going to impact on others? And I understand that the concept was that, well, if you're going to tear up the road, so you're going to put in a new water pipe, you might as well do all the other work, so we do it all at once and it's cheaper. I understand that concept and some of that makes sense. But I think when you go into the wish list of making everything wonderful and making this project $64 million, that's where you lost me. So first thing is, if you're going to ask me to borrow money and ask me to pay for it, I would like you to tell me what you need, how much it's going to cost, and how you can keep that cost as low as possible. Second, I did not like the aspect of the financing, which pretty much gave you guys carte blanche to use the $64 million in any way you wanted, as long as it met the definition legally of infrastructure repairs. I would like to see any bond be very, very specific. For example, we're going to borrow $5 million to repair 10th Avenue, 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, and this is the work that will be done on those streets for $5 million. Can we do that? Can we have legally the protection so that the money can only be used for the project that is limited in the bond to that specific project? As opposed to, here's $64 million, fix the infrastructure, and then you present us with this 2020 plan, which was like, oh yeah, phase 1 we're going to do this, and phase 2 we're going to do this. Well, guess what? I don't know if you're going to do phase 1 or you're going to do phase 2. I hope you will, but I don't know if you will. And if you don't do phase 1 and you still need the money, there's nothing that I can do as a citizen to stop you from taking the money. Because once I give you $64 million, it's yours. And that gets us down to the trust issue. I moved here in 2003, and property values were beginning to really move up. It was amazing the amount of cash that was coming into City Hall. The city was just infused with money. There was millions of dollars. During that time, the leadership of the city did not use that money to fix the roads. They didn't fix the roof of the house that they had. In fact, our buildings were falling apart. The beach building was falling apart. But they had millions of dollars. And how was the money used? So I, as a citizen, have to deal with the trust issue that my city government, as well as my city manager, who is determined by you guys, will do the right thing. If you guys are not in power, and a new city manager comes in, who is like one of the old city managers, then we're screwed. So, and I, as a citizen, have no way of changing that other than hoping that maybe the next election I can get some people into office who will change the city manager. So, as much as I like what we have in place today, my fear was, I don't know if it will be in place over the next 30 years. it wasn't like this was gonna be 1 or 2 years, this is gonna go over 30 years, and this $64 million is never gonna come back to me. Because once I say yes, you can have it, you got it. And if you guys aren't in power, if Mike's not in power, it really changes the whole dynamics of how the $64 million, and the response I got was, don't worry, you're protected because the bond will have legal language that will protect us. I never saw that legal language. I was then told, well, you can't see it before you vote because you put all those terms in the bond after. But don't worry, trust us, we'll make sure that the legal work is done right. And I said, no, I'm not giving you $64 million until I know for sure that it's done the way I want it. And I didn't like it. So I went out and said, don't do it. So my advice to you is, number one, remember that anytime you ask people for more money, it's going to affect the economics of the city. My request is that if you're going to ask us to pay for certain things, that you, again, tell us what needs to be done immediately and do it in phases. So do the stuff that needs to be done immediately, do that first, and only borrow enough money to do that. If you need to come back in future years, you guys might not be here. And then the next issue would be whether or not the people of the city of Lake Worth trust their city manager, trust their government to do the right thing. And if you do that, I think it can be sold to us. But I really want you to understand that we compete with West Palm Beach. I own a bed and breakfast. The bed and breakfasts in West Palm Beach do not pay the taxes that I pay. I pay significantly more taxes than they do. My electric bill is significantly higher, and I have to compete with them. So they can lower their rates. You can look at their tax bills, Loretta. You know, it's out there. So the issue for me is, if you're going to raise those taxes, remember the competition. And I think that I'm seeing now, I just saw on Facebook, one of the realtors put that a home in College Park sold for $600,000. That means we're heading back to where we once were. We're in the right direction. If we give this a little bit of time, the tax money will start coming in without having to borrow all that money and hit us with those additional taxes. It might be something that if we wait a year or two and encourage more people to come in and invest because our tax rates are low and we're lowering the electric rates, which you guys are doing, we are incentivizing people to come in as opposed to getting the business community saying, you know what, here's another tax. Which then sends the message out, if you go to Lake Worth, you have to deal with all these taxes and you have to deal with this. So with the trend being up in our property values, do we really need to borrow as much as we thought we needed to borrow? And is borrowing this money really necessary? So that's my point from a business perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more cards? No? Okay.
All right,